Hello, this is Ken, and thank you for tuning in to the Model Building and Retirement channel. In this episode, part 2 of 2, I'm going to complete the build of the 1977 AMT Mustang II kit, which is a recreation of a car that I had back in high school. Another one of those. I have so much fun doing those. We'll talk about it a little bit more right after the intro. Sponsored by Model Makers Workshop. Need parts for your next model project? Model Makers Workshop has you covered with the best aftermarket accessories around. And by Gallery, your one-stop shopping for all your airbrush needs. Okay, so we're back. If you haven't already done so, watch part 1 of this build, because this is the conclusion here. Part 1 carries it all the way through the color coat. And in this episode, I do the rest of the colors and assembly and finished product. So why the 1977 Mustang II? You know, it's not the most loved car in the world. I actually thought it was a nice car. That's why I had one. And people don't realize it, that if you're a Mustang fan in general, this is the car that saved Mustang. If it wasn't for the 74 to 78 Mustang, we may not even see a Mustang today. You know, got to remember back in the day, the oil embargo was going on, and all the big muscle car era, it was already done and over with, and nobody wanted to buy the big fuel hogs. They were still putting big V8 cars out on the road, big heavy cars, including the Mustang, but they had no horsepower. You know, you could have a 351 in 1973, but I think it was less than 200 horsepower. So come 1974, the little Mustang comes out and saves the world, and it was a big hit because it was good on fuel. And, you know, with the conditions of the economy and fuel in those days, it was a significant hit for Ford. My car wasn't overpowered at all. It had a 4-cylinder, 4-speed, 2300 cc, same engine as the Pinto. They did have a 6-cylinder version, and then later by 77, they had a 302 version. Still never really a muscle car, but the 302 would have been a lot more fun, I guarantee you. So before I get into the build, I want to thank everybody that participated in my live stream this last Friday. It was my first live stream. And I'm going to do a live stream every Friday night at 7 o'clock. And it's a lot of fun. I had so much fun doing it. It's like the next best thing to go into a show and engaging with the followers of my channel. So it gives me an opportunity to be live with you guys, chat back and forth, answer questions. So every week, look forward to a topic and a special guest star. So, you know, tune it in every Friday, 7 p.m. Okay, so let's get into the build. Okay, so next up I'm doing bare metal foil. So I'm going to do the window trim and all the trim that needs chrome, plus the headlight buckets themselves. This car comes with chrome headlights. I'm going to try to use clear lenses from another kit. I'm going to use them from my Boss 351 kit, but nonetheless the bezels need to be chromed, and you can use chrome paint, but I am using bare metal foil here. So let me show you how I did that, because I got it cut right up to the edge there pretty well, just like it was on a real car. So what I did is I cut a 1 millimeter by 1 millimeter square, and I'm gonna face that just flat down on the front fascia of that headlight bucket. Just use my index finger to put that into place. And I'm off a little bit, so I'm just going to very carefully lift that back off. Okay, back down again. Okay, now I'm going to take a Q-tip and just work that in right at the edge. Not going in the bucket because I'll rip it. But I'm trying to make sure I get it to adhere to the outside edges. Okay, and then very much like if you were doing a large window all on one piece, you would cover the entire window trim, but you wouldn't push in yet until you put some relief cuts in there. So what I'm going to do here is just carefully put a relief cut right from the center to the edge. And then reverse and go to the other edge. And then I'm going to go to all four corners that way. Okay, so carefully got those reliefs in there. And now what I'm going to do is take a Q-tip and just push that chrome into the bucket gently. Once I get it into position there, I'm using my more rigid Q-tip or cotton swab here. And just really forming that to the inside of that bucket. And once again, hitting that edge really good, making sure it's stuck down. Now here's a little trick I learned. I'll try to recreate it on camera. But to get a nice edge where I still have chrome all around that edge, but cut against the body, I've got a little piece of styrene here that I am going to just press right over the headlight bucket and just slightly overhanging like so. And you have to be careful. You're using a scalpel here. I don't want to slide and cut my finger, but I am going to just use that little piece of plastic styrene as a little guide for my scalpel. Get this down where I can control myself here. Very difficult doing this on camera. But I'm just tilting a little bit and sliced along that edge, and I'm using that styrene as an edge to guide my blade. Okay, if I did that right, I should be able to get it off now. So I'll use like a toothpick or something to get it started. There we go, just fill it up a little bit to where I can grab it with my tweezer. Okay, so very carefully did that. Once I get that up, I'm just burnishing the edges. But I found that worked for me. I was kind of using that as a guide, because there's no way I could have done that freehand. In fact, I tried. It just kept slipping on me. So there you go. We got two headlight buckets. Now, as far as inside the headlight, I'm not worried. I could use a little chrome pen or something like that before I put my globes in there. But that looks pretty good. Okay, so now I'm gonna go to the windshield. Okay, so for the bottom of the windshield, it has integrated wipers it molded into, so I went with a little bit thicker piece of foil, and I'll make sure I'm get it to one edge and just lightly tack down. And I'm off a little bit, so I'm going to lift that up. That's why you go lightly. There we go. So it's covering the area where I want it to go. I'm going to start by just burnishing from the top. just to make sure it's sticking down. I'm just burnishing just straight down. I'm not pushing from the inside. Once again, I'll rip it if I don't put relief cuts in there. So right now I'm not worried about that. I'm just worried about getting it stuck into place. So I'm going face down and now working from the outer edge here so that I'm adhered real good so I can run, you know, my razor blade along there. Okay, then all I'm going to do here is a couple relief cuts. One right down the middle. Make sure my corners are relieved. And now I can just gently push that in. So now I'm working on the inside edge and adhering it. And I'm using a brand new number 11 scalpel blade, but you don't have to have a scalpel blade. You could use a regular number 11 X-Acto knife blade. I'm just finding that the scalpel blade's sharper and more detailed. It dulls quicker too though, because it is so extremely sharp. You have to be careful with it, but it will dull quicker too, cutting this aluminum. Okay, so now I'm burnishing it from the inside real good, making sure it sticks down because, you know, at a later stage, we're gonna have to glue a windshield into this car, and we don't want that bare metal foil being in the way or affecting that. Okay, so I'm gonna continue burnishing. And then I use these little detailed ones from Hobby Lobby, I believe I got them. They're more rigid, but they do a really nice job of really pressing in those fine details, like in between this wiper blade here. Now you can use a toothpick. I would round it off a little bit if you do, because if it's too sharp, you'll just tear your foil. Okay, so to burnish down really good, I'm gonna use my scalpel blade here. You gotta get yourself comfortable, sitting right, good posture. Make sure you can breathe. For me, I need my magnifier, so I'm going to bring that into play here. Make sure I'm under camera still. Hey, my camera's a little bit in the way for you. I'll back that off a little bit. Okay. Get very comfortable here, and about a 45-degree angle. I'm going to start my blade. Just gently, I'm barely touching it, guide my blade along that molded line. Okay, stopped up against my wiper. Okay, once I get my cut real good, I will use a toothpick to try to peel up where it's adhered to the car so that I can get a good grip on it with my tweezer. And just carefully pull away. And once I get my cut done, then I'll just re-burnish it down a little bit. And I can see I missed it didn't come up right here, so let me try again. So light, I can't explain how feather light I'm pressing there, just to cut the foil and not the paint below it. One thing I'm going to do too before I'm done is the blade itself. I will take black Sharpie and color that black. I've seen people chrome their wiper blades and forget to do that, and you know, you don't have chrome rubber on your real car, do you? Okay, so I got that first cut out there done. Now I'm gonna work around the second wiper here. If you do this right, you can make the molded in windshield wipers look pretty good. You know, I mean, some kits have separately applied wipers, some don't, like this one. But if you get that bare metal foil on there and detail it out really nice, they'd look like they were separately applied. Okay, that looks good. So I'm going to speed up now, and I'm going to cut some pieces here, and I'm going to go up the side. I'm doing these all separate pieces because that is the way the real car is. If you look closely on an older car, it's like 4 pieces all joined together. All right. Okay, so next up, just a little bit of Tamiya clear orange in the front marker lights, and I will go with Tamiya clear red in the back lights. Just using a tiny little detail brush here. Doesn't take much, especially against that chrome foil. And now I'm going to go with some clear red. And I didn't even load my brush up at all. So I'm just going to literally just wipe it through my Kleenex a little bit there. Okay, so we got amber front markers and red rear markers. Looks good. All right, we're going to let that dry up, and then we're going to clean the model up, and we'll be going to clear coat. All right, so I got the body all cleaned off and dusted and ready for clear coat, including the bumpers and the hood and the mirrors and whatnot, everything that's going to get clear. And then I'm going to mask and do my black because I want my matte to remain, or my black to remain semi-gloss or matte finished. Okay, so we're going to mix up our clear coat, and we're going to be using MCW Gloss Clear Enamel 2K paint. So that is 1017E Gloss Clear Enamel, and it is used with hardener 1017EH Clear hardener for enamel, specially formulated for the clear. It is not the same hardener you use for other colors. And then the thinness, we're going to be using Mr. Color Leveling Thinner. This is a really great thinner because it retards the dry time just enough to let all your paint settle down and smooth out on you a little bit. So we're going to mix this up. Okay, so I am going to mix up a total of 10 milliliters of clear, mixed clear, and that is 2 parts clear to 1 part hardener and 1 part thinner. So I'm going to start out with 2.5 milliliters of my Mr. Color Leveling Thinner. I'm just going to fill that spoon to the rim. So I just want to see how that measures up. And sure enough, look at that. That is higher than my mark is on my milliliter of my cup. So I don't trust the actual measurement of the cups. Now, of course, you don't have to be exact with this anyways. But I do find that if you're short on the thinner, you're going to not flow real good. You're going to kind of dry spray a little bit. So it is important to have enough thinner in there. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is add my hardener. I decided just to add that thinner. That's just a little extra thinner. Okay, so now I need 2.5 milliliters of my hardener. Okay, I'm going to dispose of this pipette. I do not want to stick that in my clear because it'll begin to harden and ruin my clear. And I'm going to immediately wipe out my spoon. And since the mixture is 2 parts clear to 1 part hardener and 1 part thinner, that means I need 5 milliliters of clear, which is going to be 2 spoonfuls of the 2.5. Even though the cups have the graduation marks on it, I'm doing this to be safe. You don't have to. Okay, so there's 2.5. Fill that up one more time. Okay, so it's pretty close. If you look at that 10 milliliter mark on the jar or the little cup, we're pretty much right at that line, just slightly above. So I'm guessing the measurements are closer than I thought. Okay, so I'm going to use the same pipette. I'm just going to make sure I'm not adding any more. Squeeze out all my old clear. And I'm going to stir my paint up. And I'm just going to stir it around with my pipette. And I also like to just stir it by drawing out from the bottom and then squirting it back into the top several times. Because if you remember, I put the thinner in first at the bottom. So if it's still separated, that means the bottom is thinner than the top. So I'm taking it from the bottom and putting it on the top and letting that all mix together. So it's a mixture of doing that and stirring. Okay. Now I probably have a little bit more than I need to. And this clear, you know, it's kind of a thick paint. It sprays really good with a 0.3 millimeter gun. But if you put too many coats on, you start hiding your detail. So ideally, 2 nice wet coats, no more than 3. So you got to resist the urge that if you have more clear left over, and incidentally, now that this is mixed with hardener, do not ever take any of your leftover and put it back in your bottle, because once it has that hardener in it, it has a shelf life of about 4 hours and it'll harden up. And if you mix that back into your bottle, you're going to ruin the rest of your bottle. But you're going to have that, I know I always have that desire, if I have too much paint left over, is, let me just shoot some more clear on the model. Well, don't shoot that clear on the model if you don't need to. I'd rather throw the paint away than hide detail on the model and take away from all that hard work that you've been done and trying to keep details in place. So, all right, so we are going to go to the booth and we're going to spray the clear on, and I'll meet you over there. Okay, so we're back at the booth once again, and this time I'm using my Mobius 0.3 millimeter airbrush, about 20 psi pressure. And first I'm testing a spoon here, just make sure it lays on really good, and it did. Very, very pretty, it just lays right on. So I'm going 2 medium wet coats on everything that's going to show. I keep my air on at all times. Actually, I do keep my paint on too. But what I'll do is I'll go all the way past the part before I come back so that I don't reverse my direction right on the part, because that would load up the paint a little bit. So each pass I go beyond the part before I come back. And I'm making sure I overlap each one of my coats at least 50%, if not a little bit more. And I'm really watching that reflection in my lights as I spray, because that way I can see just how nice and wet that coat is. If you lay it on really nice and wet, especially with that leveling thinner, you should have almost no orange peel or bumpy texture whatsoever. And if you are getting it, that probably means that you need to thin out your paint a little bit more. And it's okay. I found this stuff very, very forgiving. You could probably add 1 to 2 milliliters to this 10 milliliter mix. Remember, there was 2.5 milliliters of thinner in the first place, and I have sometimes made a mistake and went 1 to 1, and it still sprayed pretty nice. So it's pretty forgiving. So yeah, you can add more thinner if you need to. Okay, then what I'm doing on the body here too, before I go to my overlapping passes, is I'm getting all the hard to reach areas, like right around the trim and the wheel wells, headlight buckets, all those little places where you need to get some clear buildup without your paint on full blast or even a medium wet coat. It's a little bit lighter when you're doing that. Then once you get all that covered, you go right into your normal passes. And when I go into my normal passes, I'm probably about 3/4 throttle. So right here is an example of what I was talking about on the roof. Notice that I'm making that pass across the roof and the trunk area there. And then I'm going to flip the car around and continue right off where I left off. Instead of starting at the bottom and meeting up to that area, I continue right where it was. Just take your time, make sure that you got all your nooks and crannies and everything. Okay, so I am going to go ahead and speed that up to 4x for the second coat, but I'll keep all the footage intact. Okay, so next I am working on the tail lights here, so I'm going to use some Tamiya clear red and clear orange. Okay, this next thing is a tip for the people that are either new to building or just returning to the hobby. But a cool way to make your lenses of your taillights and your dashboard and your headlights and all that kind of stuff look a little bit better like real lenses is I use that Tamiya clear red and clear yellow on my taillights and on my marker lights here. But even though the color looks pretty good, they don't look like they're lenses. So what I found is UV resin works really well. And I will have a link in my description along with everything else that I use. But I got this off Amazon. I can't remember how much, but it was very affordable. And you got 2 of these bottles, 100 grams each. And it also comes with a little ultraviolet light where you can either hold it or it has these little fold out legs that you can put over your project. And then it has a timer for 60 seconds, 90 seconds, or 150 seconds. I usually go for the 150 seconds. One tip though is don't look at that light. It is ultraviolet light. It could damage your corneas. So, you know, be careful not to look at that. Just a glance at it isn't bad, but if you stare at it, it's like watching a welder in progress or looking at the sun. So anyways, the way this works, and I'm going to get a little cap here from a water bottle. I have a whole collection of those. Yeah, I save all my water bottle caps here. So anyways, I'm going to just unscrew the resin. I'm just going to pour a little bit into the cap. Now this resin will not harden up or do anything until it's exposed to the ultraviolet light. So it's kind of like a sticky, syrupy type of stuff. But what you could do now, you can take like a toothpick, dip it in there, and then start touching it against your lens. In fact, I'm going to get this in my hand here where I can hold it. And then you're going to work it. It has a little bit of surface tension to it. So just dip it and push it into the corners a little bit. And the surface tension is part of what makes it look so cool, because it builds up like a little dome. So I'll just do this little corner here, and then I'll hit it with the ultraviolet light to just show you the difference between the two. Okay, I'm going to set that down. And if you hit it once, it's the 60 seconds. Oops, I forgot to plug it in. It's a USB connection, so you do have to have a USB charger source. Okay, so you press it once, you get 60 seconds, twice 90, third time you get your whole 150 seconds. So I'm just going to let that cure up. And I will fast forward the video so you're not watching 150 seconds of ultraviolet going on. Okay, so now it's stopped. Okay, so that left side has got a lens on it and the rest don't. So I think you can see the difference there. So that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool for a very inexpensive way of doing it too. And again, that works in your gauge cluster. So, you know, for your speedometer or something, any place where you want a nice little lens. So off camera, I'm going to do the rest of these and we'll be back. Okay, so next up I'm using some Tamiya Semi-Gloss X18 and a very small detail brush, and I'm hitting these little Magnum 500 wheels. My car had only a 4-bolt pattern, but they're not going to put a model out with a 4-cylinder 4-bolt, so these will be a 5-bolt pattern, but they still have the look. So I'm just dabbing in these little inserts black. So finishing off the detailing of the wheels here. Okay, so I'm taking just my knockoff chrome pen. It's like a Molotov chrome, but it's called Fleicy is the brand, off of Amazon. But I'm just coming in here and just dotting the lug nuts. Sometimes to activate it, you can just tap it over here on the side, get some paint flowing. Okay, then I also went through, I already did this, but in each little slot, I stuck the tip of this pen and it just moved it back and forth a little bit. Because if you look at the picture of my wheels from my car, and of course I had 4-spoke, 4 lug wheels, and you know, the kid or most kids aren't going to have that because, you know, they're muscle cars for the main part. So I'm going with 5-spoke, but I'm trying to mimic that look the best I can. Okay, next thing I'm wanting to show you is I put black into my grill here, and I did not use panel liner. I used Tamiya semi-gloss black, but you could use anything. You could use your watercolors, you know, acrylics or whatever, you know, if you want a darker black. And, you know, I was still careful to get it in there, but then what I'll do is after it's dried real good, I'll take a rigid cotton swab and you just rub it horizontally so that the high spots of that grill area are being rubbed. And what I'm doing is I'm rubbing that paint off because this chrome stuff is kind of slick and slippery. So the paint doesn't adhere extremely well. And what that does is it gives you that nice chrome tipped grill look. You know, let me hold that up for you. It gives it a real nice chrome tipped grill look. Okay, so now my paint, my clear has come out and cured really good. And it really came out nice. I mean, the finish is extremely perfect. It's just that there are just a few dust narbs in there. It's almost impossible to avoid that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and sand and polish and do all that before I mask off and do my black matte or semi-gloss bottom. And the reason for that is semi-gloss or matte paint is not something that you want to buff or get compound on. So I want to get my body all nice and prettied up. So when I tape off and spray that black, the black is just left alone. So I'm going to... Okay, so I'm going to use 5 thousandths Trizact, or you could use any 5 thousandths grit. And then I'm going to go to 8 thousandths, and then I'm going to finish with 12 thousandths cloth mesh. And once the sanding's complete, I'm going to buff it out with Plastex, followed by Meguiar's Ultimate Polish. Okay, so I'm going to go to fast forward on this, but if you do want to see the sanding and polishing in great detail, take a look at part 4 of my 4-part paint series on how to get a show car paint job on your model, and I'll have a link in the description for that. Okay, so now that I got my 3 grits of sanding done, I'm going to go to my plastics, and I'm just going to put a little bit in a cap here. All right, so that's all nice and cleaned up. So the next thing I'm going to be doing is taping off for the black. Okay, so now I am off to masking so I can paint my black. And I'm using frog tape, which is a low tack, but a real clean edge masking. And it comes in a roll, I think just about 1.5 inches wide. And what I do is I just cut off pieces and I put it on a clean cutting mat and a ruler, and I'll cut it into thinner strips. And for example, here I'm taping off right on that bare metal foil chrome line that I did. So I cut that into a thinner strip so it was manageable. See right on that chrome there, I haven't done that piece yet. And I masked the back here. So I'm going to get that all finished up, and then I'm going to mask the rest of the car off. And okay, so I masked the rest of the car off with the frog tape, and I don't press that down extremely hard anywhere. You know, once you've peeled up paint, you get a little bit timid about it. But I do make sure my edges are down and burnished down really, really well, and I make sure I don't have any voids there. And right before I spray, I will recheck everything, just make sure it's still tucked down. I want to spray this stuff. I'm not going to spray in this direction. I'm not going to spray from the bottom up. I will dust the bottoms of the rockers, but when I go to spray this, I'm actually going to spray from this direction, just slightly, and that means I'm not driving the paint into the tape, and that's going to help you keep a crisp line. Also, like you got your door gaps here, you know, if you were spraying this way, that paint can capillary action up through there and possibly bleed to where it shouldn't be. It can happen no matter what, but very much minimized this way. Okay, I have some pre-thinned Tamiya X18 semi-gloss X18. And if you're going to ever spray out of an airbrush any of the Tamiya acrylics, it is not a water-based, it is a solvent-based, alcohol-based product. So use something like Mr. Color Leveling Thinner, and you're going to mix it 1:1. This has already been thinned. But I do want to show off a new gadget that I got for Christmas from Mrs. Claus. Anxious to try this thing out. So it's called the Ani Lab. I think she got it probably on Amazon. You'll have to search for it. But it's electric powered. And when you touch it, it turns on a vibrator. Okay. And it comes with this little bottle of ball bearings. So what you do is drop a ball bearing into your, like Tamiya paints don't come with that, but like all your MCW paints do have a ball bearing in them. Okay, so I'm going to place a ball bearing in there. Screw that lid on so I don't spill it, because I know I will. Okay, so I got a ball bearing in there. Just going to take this bottle and press it on there. I don't know if you can see just how much that is vibrating, but it's pretty intense, and you can hear that ball bearing shaking. It's bouncing around in there. You hear that little, like a rattle? That rattle is that ball bearing moving around. Okay. And I'm going to spray very light. I'm not going to soak this down, and that's also going to help minimize any chance of bleeding of the paint. And I'm going to use my Mobius 0.3 millimeter airbrush, and I'll meet you at the booth. Okay, once again back at the booth, which is one of my favorite places to be when I'm building a model. Painting is my favorite part of the model, I gotta tell you that. Painting and decals. Okay, so anyways, spraying kind of lightly here, dusting in the paint into the nooks and crannies, and then just slowly increasing my spray a little bit. And I'm going to go just 2 coats, and probably medium wet is the final coat that I'm putting on there. And notice here as I'm getting ready to spray the body, I'm doing that little last check to make sure my tape is tacked down real good. And I'm spraying very, very lightly here, just getting my bottom of my wheel wells and the bottom of the rockers, because I am spraying into the tape here, which is something that I really don't want to be doing. So I'm not actually at the tape line, I'm at the very edges of the bottom, and going extremely light here. And then once I get that dusted in, I will turn the model upside down, as you see here, and then I'll begin to finish my painting. I'm going to go ahead and speed this up from here on in, and again, that was 2 coats. Alright, we're at one of my favorite parts of builds when I have to remove my tape. And it's a favorite part unless something goes wrong. Okay, so one of the things you want to do is peel, don't pull straight out, but peel back and at an angle. And that'll minimize lifting paint. From the mask line. So I'm pulling at an angle and away. See how I'm pulling? And this paint is not cured. I do that on purpose, because if it's cured, it can flake on you. Don't get your tweezers stuck to your tape. There we go. So far, so good. There we have it. No bleed through, no peeled paint. Minimal damage to any foil. Boy, she's looking more and more like the car. I get so excited when I see that. All right, I'm going to let that cure up. Okay, next up, I'm going to show you 2 different options for doing white raised letter tires. And there's other options. First of all, you can buy decals over the internet. Some kits come with them. Give you 2 examples. One of them is kind of mimicking how a pad printed tire would be done. And you know, you have to have a nice profile of a lettering, raised lettering, and this does. It says Goodyear Rallies on it. So what I'm going to do on the first method is, this is just a dried up old white marker that's not working. But this is some Tamiya X2 white here. So what I'm doing is I'm just dipping, I'm using it as a brush here, the old pen, and I'm just spreading on nice and evenly a little layer of white on a popsicle stick. And then I'm going to set my tire down and as carefully as possible, just press down on the letters. This is sort of what pad printing is. Pad printing is a process where they load up a, sort of a silicone kind of pad on a press, and it's like how they do a lot of coffee mugs and printing like that. And it just comes in contact with the item that you're going to color and carefully lays down a perfect defined little print. Except for pad printing, you would have a die made up, the inkier pad with that lettering, and then you would be installing the lettering. Here we're coloring the lettering. You got to make sure you don't have too much paint on there where it's going to run or get over other areas. But you can keep going over it. I'm holding the tire nice and flat down on my work surface here and just going down. I'm not moving forward, back. I'm not rocking. And if you do get a little much where you don't need it, take a little Q-tip and clean it up. And that's a pretty nice defined letter. The other way to do it is to get a like a jelly roll pen. And I'm not so good at this one, but this is a Jelly Roll number 5 pen. And I got that on Amazon. It'll be in the link of my description, as with everything else that I use. But in this case, what you're going to do, I'll just go to the back side of this tire here, and you just very carefully, and for me, I need a magnifier. You're very carefully just taking that pen and marking up your letters. Some people are really good at this. I'm not so good. My preferred method, if I do have enough of a profile, is using the popsicle stick method. But I'll do this word Goodyear with my pen. This is not bad if it's going to be a shelf model and not scrutinized extremely close. But if you're going to be in a show or you're going to do some real close photography like I do, you know, you need that to be a little more crisp. So there's an example of using a Jelly Roll pen. Let's look at those together here. I think you'll see that the pad printed method worked a lot better. So I just wanted to pass on that tip. And you could use acrylics, you could use anything you want as long as it doesn't dry immediately and stays just tacky enough or wet enough just to get it on to transfer it. It has to be thick enough, you don't want it wet and runny. I thought I'd just share that with you. Okay, so next up, I'm gonna do a little bit of flocking. And I don't normally do that because you don't normally see the interior unless you have like a convertible or something where it really shows. Or in this case, it's a hatchback, so this trunk area in particular really shows. I don't have any model building flock. I am gonna try this Woodland Scenic Soft Snowflake. It's made for model railroading. But it's it looks like to be the right consistency, and it's applied basically the same way. And then, you know, I'll apply this and then I will paint it. So what I'm going to do is just use some Mod Podge, and this is just clear high luster Mod Podge, water-based white glue. Take a nice little flat paintbrush here. Dip it in. Just kind of get this all wet with paint. I think I'll switch up the brushes a little bit here so you can get a little closer at the edges. Okay, now I'm gonna smooth that out a little bit with my fat brush again. I'll get some glue down, and now this has a salt shaker or a spoon in. So I'll use a little salt shaker, and I'm on a piece of paper here. And I'm just sprinkling on there. Tap it a little bit. Then I'm going to tilt her upside down and tap it. I have one little clumpy piece here. And I'll try to work off of there. Okay, I'm just going to let that glue dry up, and then we'll come back to paint. This stuff you just recycle by folding it up and putting it right back into your bottle. Okay, so while I'm waiting for that flocking to dry up on there, I'm going to go ahead and install my glass. And I'm not going to dwell on that. I've covered that in other videos, and I can see that this one's running a bit long. Anyways, I just used my Mod Podge and just kind of worked that glue right around the edges, and it holds really well. And if you do get a little bit of seepage in there, it really doesn't show too bad because it's clear. Okay, so I'm getting ready to paint the interior, and I really didn't have the right color tan or beige for my car. So I got some craft paints here, and I have chestnut and like a cream colored white. And I'm mixing the two together and just eyeballing it into a cup there. It's very thick. It'll never spray out of an airbrush there. So I have a little bottle of window wash fluid. That's right, window wash fluid, just like you use for your car. And I'm going to use a pipette and just keep thinning that out until it's the right consistency. And this is a little bit tricky because you know, there is no measurement for that. It's an eyeball situation. If you're familiar with spray painting, you kind of get the feel for how thick the viscosity is of your paints, and you have to kind of get it to that viscosity here. So it took a lot of practicing, but I got it thinned out quite enough, and we'll go to the booth here and I'll shoot that. Okay, so here we are at the booth, and this time I am using my Mobius 0.5 millimeter needle nozzle combination, and I upped my pressure to about 25 psi for this, and spraying very light little coats. I kind of got lucky with my mixture, and it covered quite well. I did, I believe it was 2 coats I did on the interior, and I'm just going to show the first coat here, and in fact I'm going to speed that up, but it covered quite well. Okay, so once the paint had all dried up, I went ahead and started detailing out the dashboard. And I just used some medium brown here with the fine tip brush and kind of worked that into where the wood grain was, using my picture as a reference from my car. I didn't simulate the wood exactly, but because I know it wouldn't show that much. But what I did is I went ahead with the brown there. And then I used a black acrylic marker to mark my little gauge faces. And then followed up with some orange Tamiya, clear orange Tamiya, and brushed that over the wood grain. And that kind of gave it a nice little burlwood appearance here without going into deep detail. So I was pretty happy with the effect there. And then finally, I just used some UV resin in the gauges and, you know, gave that gauges look like they have a lens there. And it's not my best work, but, you know, I think it looks pretty good for what you're going to see in the model there. Not really happy with that kit steering wheel, though. I just didn't have a good, suitable alternative for that one. And here's a shot of the finished interior. Okay, realizing once again that my video is running long at an hour. So final assembly, I'm just going to go ahead and speed this all up to about 8x, and then we'll go directly to the reveal right after that. Okay, so down to the final reveal in the garage here. Sure does remind me of my old car, but I gotta tell you, the quality of the AMT kit on this particular one is extremely poor. Most disappointing is the engine compartment. Absolutely no detail. In fact, I didn't even bother putting a radiator hose on or the wiring. But if you look at the box art, which I have a picture above, it's not all that clear, but it's showing all complete fender aprons and everything, so it's not even the same kit. So that's kind of deceiving. But I would have bought it anyways because I did want to recreate my car, and there's not a lot of choices for that model, the Mustang II. So anyways, enjoy the rest of the slideshow. Okay, so that concludes the build of the 1977 Mustang. Recreation to try to make it look like my 1974. Wasn't the best kit in the world, you know, but for me, it's still satisfactory because it resembles what I had. And there's something about, you know, when you look at a picture, it brings back memories, that's really cool. But when you can actually hold something tangible in your hands and look at it, yeah, it really brings back memories. And most of us car guys know that a car really brings us back, especially in our younger days. We think about the wild fun that we were having back in the day, even if you weren't so wild. Something about the cars bring you back to a memory and a special time and place in your life. So it might not have seemed so significant then, but when we look back, it definitely was. So this was a lot of fun building. Not a very good kit, but there isn't too many options for that body style out there. Anyways, hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you next time.